Okay, so the answer for this you try was print hi, comma my, comma name, comma is, comma Harry, and comma Potter. And all of this would combine together to create the sentence, hi, my name is Harry Potter. The applicant, you just print out what you want to say instead of concatenating. In this particular situation, you didn't need to concatenate, but we just wanted you guys to get the idea you want to concatenate more complex things. Okay, and for the challenge, the error was workshop with plus instead of a comma. Okay, if-else statements. So this particular concept is one of my favorites, but basically, if-else statements carry out different actions depending on whether something satisfies this condition. And there are different kinds of if statements, although not all of these in time. So the first is a general statement, and these usually come first when listing them out. The next is elif, which stands for else if, and this comes after statement, and it represents another possibility. The first if statement is that. And the last time is else. It's the last statement and is only going to run after all of the other conditions are not met. For example, we can have the code x is equal to 5, print hello, else if x is equal to 3, print what, and then else print error. And make sure to include a colon at the end of each if statement. Otherwise, the computer can get confused on what's actually supposed to run if that condition's met. And also note that to compare if two values are equal, you have to use the double equal sign rather than the single equal sign. Because the single equal sign is like an assignment. Like if you're saying x is equal to 5, whereas a double equal sign is when you're comparing the two. Like, is x equal to 5? Finally, keep in mind that you can add more than one condition to an if statement. For example, you can do is if x and y, or if
topic that we're going to cover is indexing. So indexes are the position that an item is found in a list. So for an example of this is this list shown. And the index of rows would be 0 because the index goes 0 first was 0 and this goes sequentially. So this code shows the position of the item in the list. So here's what it shows. And the second segment, it's at position in list, and then the name dot index is the position in the list. Okay, so now you guys can try this, and the instructions are to take the food list that you created previously, or you can make a new one, and you can write a program that can locate the position of the first string or word, and then you can type down in the chat when you're done. And then the challenge for this you try is, according to Python, what is the location of the string? And then you can write a program to show that.
Done.
So has anyone finished this yet? You can type done or yes in the chat when you finish. Okay, it seems like people are finishing up, so we'll just move on and I'll show you the answer. So this is the answer for the you try and the challenge. So the code for the you try would be my food equals, and then your list, and then you would put my food, and then brackets 1, and it would print the thing that was in the first index of the list. So it would be burger, because remember that the first part of the list is 0 as the index. And then the answer to the challenge would be my underscore food dot index pizza, and then it shows the index of pizza, so it would be 0 since it's the first in the list.
All right. So the next concept we're going to be covering is while loops. Loops are basically used to repeat a piece of code as long as the condition is true. So as long as a particular condition is true, the code inside the loop is going to keep repeating over and over again. So for example, if you see the first example here, we've written while x is greater than or equal to 3, print hello. So basically what this does is there's going to be a variable called x and it's going to have a value. And as long as x is either greater than 3 or equal to 3, the system is going to keep printing hello. So sometimes the loop might run infinitely if x is, let's just say x is constantly 4, and it's always going to be greater than 3, so it's just going to keep printing hello. So like I said, it's going to repeat as long as x is greater than or equal to 3. And there must be a colon at the end of the while statement. So if you look at the first while loop here, right after the x is greater than or equal to 3, we actually have a colon. And you need to do that for any while loop you write. And keep in mind, you can also add more than one condition to a while loop. So here in the example we provided, we only have one condition, while x is greater than or equal to 3. But you can add several conditions. So you can add if x and y, or if x or y as well. And remember, when you're using while loops, if you want to use an equal sign, you need to use the double equal sign, not just the single equal sign. All right, now it's your turn to try. So you're going to create a variable called x, and you're going to write a blank while loop for any value of x. And if you have a little bit of extra time, as a challenge, you can write any print commands inside the while loop, and it can print anything that you want. It's up to you. So you guys can try this activity for, we'll give you around 2 minutes. And let us know in the chat when you're done.
What do you mean by value? Do you mean by like bigger than 0?
Yeah, so basically you can, for your while loop, you can just create some condition involving x. So it can be like if x or while x is greater than or equal to 5, or while x is less than 2, or while x is equal to 6, something like that. So it can
and
be
also, Colin, it doesn't have to be greater than 0. It can still be like a negative number. It can be 0. Like if you had it as while x is less than 2, then x could be negative 10 or negative 5. It could be anything less than 2.
I'm having a print 1 million bobs.
Okay, so I think people are starting to finish this, so we'll move on from this, and I'll show you the answer.
So your answer should look something like while x is equal to or equal to 5, or you can put any number instead of 5. And then for the challenge, it would just be a line below that. So after the colon, it would indent, and you can write print, and then any statement you would like to print. So this one is kind of more open-ended. So as long as your program is somewhat similar to this, it should be fine. So for loops are kind of a hard concept, but an easy way to remember them are that they're kind of like bills. So for example, when you pay the bill for the AC, as long as the AC is on, you have to pay a bill. So similarly, you can say for AC being on, add $1 to bill. And like that, you can also say something in Python. For example, for x in range 7. And when they say in range, they mean less than. So it's saying for the value x is less than 7, print x. So Python always starts at 0. No matter what number, unless you assign it a number, it will automatically start at 0. So it's automatically assuming that x equals 0. And since 0 is in the range of 7, it prints 0, then adds 1 to 0. So then x equals 1. And it keeps going through this process of printing numbers and adding 1 till it comes to 6. Because once it prints 6, it does 6 plus 1 equals 7. And for 7 in range of 7, it's not true, it's false. So it's not printing x. So that's why you can see that it results in 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And for how to write
I have a problem with while loops.
Oh, okay, what's your issue?
I made it so that I'll print Bob 10 times, but it looks like it printed like 1,000 or 100 times. It's like 100.
Do you want to present your screen
how about
and we can take a look at it?
We can finish this topic, and then while people are working on the U-tries, you can present your screen. So for this, it would say for blank in range blank. So you can put whatever you want. Just remember that the in range has to be a number, and it has to be in parentheses. And after you write those parentheses, you would write a colon, and then it should automatically indent. So we can move on to the U-try really quick. So for the U-try, you're going to try to write a for loop that will output the numbers 0, 1, and 2. So that would be in the form for blank in range blank. And for the challenge, you want to find errors in the program. There are 3 errors, and we've inserted the program below. So we'll give you around 2 minutes to do this. Oh, and Colin, I'm looking at your code, and I think that having capital letters and lowercase letters might make a difference. So try making all of them capital or all of them lowercase.
It's still not working. I changed all of them to B, and they're still not working.
Let me try doing the program on my side then.
I just tried it myself with only lowercase.
I used an older version of Python. Would that affect it?
That might, but since this is pretty basic, I don't think they would have changed it. So could you present your screen and we'll take a look? And could you zoom in again?
I'm calling. Could you zoom in? a bit. Sorry, we can't really see.
Okay.
That's great, thank you.
It's still printing Bob.
It looks like you are using B, but in the while loop you're comparing x to 0. So you have to change the lowercase x to B as well.
Oh.
Okay.
Was the code for that good?
Yeah, so it printed Bob the amount of times that he chose.
Yeah, and then for the you try, was that one good?
Okay, so this is the answer to the you try for the while loop. Okay, sorry, I meant for loops.
So for your you try answers, it should say for x in range, or you can always change that to something else. I saw in the chat someone put R, and you can put pretty much any letter there. And then in range, we put 3 here, but you can put any number you would like there again. And then you have to remember the colons, and then you would write print, and then we put x here because we used x above. And then for the challenge, the 3 mistakes where that range was spelled incorrectly. There has to be parentheses on both sides of the 2. And there is a semicolon there, but it should be a colon. And I think in the chat, someone also did, when they did their they did print and then in quotes R. So maybe try taking out those quotes as well and just kind of writing print and then in parentheses. That might help. All right, so the next concept we're going to be covering are functions. Functions are kind of like a set of instructions put into a larger command. For example, in real life, when we're telling someone to tie their shoes, we could tell them to pick up one lace, pick up another lace, cross them over each other, and bring one under. But instead of saying all of that, we use the simple command, tie your shoes. Similarly, in code, when we have a long set of instructions that we need to keep repeating over and over again, we can use functions. So whenever we need that to the code to output or input a certain value, we can just use the name of that function, which makes our code a lot simpler and shorter. So the things you've been using so far, such as print, int, float, input, all of these are functions that are built into Python. However, we can make our own functions too. So if you want to create a function, you need to start by typing def, and then a name of your function. This name can be anything you choose. It's probably a good idea to keep the name of your function appropriate to what the function does. So if your function is focused on adding numbers, maybe write def adding numbers. And then you need to have an opening and a closing parentheses and a colon. After you press enter and go on to the next line, you can put any code inside this function. As you can see in the example, we have def practice function with parentheses and a colon, and inside the function, we print 2 plus 7. And in order to run this function, you just have to write the name of the function, which is in this case practice function, with parentheses after it. And this will return the value 9. All right, now it's your turn to try. You're going to program a function that results in the number 13 being outputted. And if you have extra time, you can make a function in which the user inputs a number that the function will add 5 to. So you guys can spend around 2 minutes on this.
Whole code into one function for some reason.
That's good. Then you have practice functions. So you guys can work on this for a couple of minutes and let us know if you need any help or whenever you finish. All right, it looks like.
Okay, so has anyone finished this?
Oh, sorry. Looks like a couple of people are done in the chat, so we can, I guess, reveal the solution. All right, so your answer should look something like this. You should have DEF followed by the name of whatever your function is. It doesn't have to be practice.
Exactly what it is. I just had print 13.
Nice. So yeah, and then you should have some kind of statement inside your function. And when you run this function, it should execute whatever code's inside. And for the challenge, as you can see here, we take an input from the user asking them what their favorite number is, and then we just print that number plus 5. And so that's the function for the challenge.
I think I might make a shortened version of print where it's just P.
Okay, so for some other useful information in Python, indents are needed after the if, while, and for loops. We reviewed over that today, but it's just a gentle reminder. And also that when you're creating in Python, indents must be made using the spacebar or the tab button, but you cannot do both. So for most of what we did today, it would automatically make indents, and that's generally the case. But in case you do have to make your own indents, just know that using the space and tab isn't generally allowed. You can also import various modules, which will allow you to use new statements. So for example, you can import random, which will let you use a random.choice statement, or you can import math, which will let you do more advanced math. You can almost import modules for anything. And if you want to find the length, you would use the len and with parentheses function. So you can say, for example, let's say like you have the word hi, then you can use a len function in order to find out how many numbers are in the. And we will go more in detail into that in our next classes. So for conditional tests, finding if a letter is part of a word in a list or not. So if you want to, for example, find out if A isn't happy, you would use a conditional test. So the statement would execute here because A isn't happy. And I think that's mostly all we have for this week. However, don't forget to fill out the form based on what you're interested in doing next week. We didn't get too many responses, so if you don't fill it out, then we might not be able to place you, or we might place you in something you might not want to do. So I put it again in the chat, so if everyone can go ahead and fill that out if you haven't already.
Manomay, if you could go back to the project slide, that'd be great.
Yeah. Oh, yes, sir.
It looks like so far, Colin, Kaya, Abiram, and Caleb have filled out the form. And Divyang. So yeah, form as well, so that you can get hopefully get the project of your choice. Or else we're kind of doing it on like a first come first serve basis. So we might have to give you a project that you're not as interested in if the spots fill up.
Yeah, once again, your options, you have 3, are Mad Libs, Pass-Through Generator, and Rock, Paper, Scissors. And all of them are super interesting. So don't feel too bad if you don't get your first choice, because you'll learn a lot with each one.
And if you like more than one, you can always click more than one on the form, and we can assign whichever one we have more space in. Okay, so for next week, we'll start off with finishing the last few concepts that we wanted to cover as a group, and then we'll kind of split into these project groups. So if you guys, we recommend you fill out the form by the end of today at the latest so that we can start that next week. And I think that's all we have. So if you would like to leave once you fill out the form, feel free.
Also, feel free to stay a bit longer if you have any questions you want to ask us.
I accidentally mixed up all my code